10 most controversial moments in Primo Radical history.
And I really wanted to talk to Putin. I really wanted to pitch to him why we needed a weapons embargo to the Middle East and why his new bombing campaign on behalf of Assad in Syria was basically following in the footsteps of the U.S. and that this is catastrophic and that we don't get to a peace. The only peace is political, and that we needed an emergency weapons embargo and a ceasefire and then political dialogue. And I really wanted to be able to say that to his face. Mm-hmm. And I had hoped that when I heard that he was going to join this head table, I thought, oh, great, maybe I can talk to him. But there was no translator there. He showed up just for a brief period of time. I don't know, it might have been 10 or 15 minutes before he gave a speech in Russian.
So did he have any kind of communication with you?
No, none. Not eye contact, nothing.
Right.
At one point, the table was like, it was so bizarre. Nobody talked to anybody.
That's what I was going to ask you too, is because Flynn was also sitting there. Did you talk to him at all?
He came over and introduced himself at the beginning. And I gave him my elevator speech about why I was there, and he was not interested. And so I thought, I wasn't interested in talking to him either, and I basically pitched to him about why we needed a peace offensive in the Middle East. And he had no interest, and my 30-second elevator speech was over, and that was that. Flynn turned state's witness, with Mueller. So if there was anything untoward going on at that table, Mueller would have long since known about it, and there was nothing.
And I think that's, the case for the Young Turks. It's not that the Young Turks changed because Jeffrey Katzenberg invested $20 million in them. I think it's more the fact that Jeffrey Katzenberg chose the Young Turks to invest $20 million in shows you what the Young Turks are, which is a very non-threatening and mainstream voice that's slightly to the left of the center of the Democratic Party, which you absolutely need if you're a believer in Democratic Party power, because it's the AOCs and the Bernie Sanders of the world who convince leftists, who are to the left of, say, Nancy Pelosi, that the Democratic Party is still their home. That's what keeps them captive to the Democratic Party is, oh, look, I see Bernie Sanders and AOC there. That's who I identify with. And they're in the Democratic Party, so that's my party. And I think that I don't think it's that the Young Turks once was this radical, subversive platform that became more mainstream once Jeffrey Katzenberg invested in them. I think Jeffrey Katzenberg invested in them because they were never that. They were always, ultimately, at the end of the day, when push comes to shove, when the rubber meets the road, tools of the Democratic Party. And maybe they've become more of that because, like I said, the Trump era drove the left into the arms even more than they ever were before the Democratic Party in unity against what they believe was this fascist threat. But I think the Young Turks are pretty much what they've always been.
And in fact, I'll tell you right now, we'll do it right here. Yeah, I'm running for president. What I mean by that is there ain't no candidate for me, so I'm going to write myself in. That's what I'm doing. I've already come to that decision. Since there's no candidate out there and any of the parties or any of anything that satisfies my personal need, then I still want to vote. I still want to exercise my constitutional right, so I will be writing myself in for president. Now, I'm being clear. That doesn't mean I've opened the door to a candidacy. If I win, I'm serious though, if America writes me in and I win, I'll do the job.
Awesome. That's great news.
I don't think I would have any choice. I would have to. How could I walk away from that?
Well, Governor, I really do appreciate you being back on the show, and I appreciate your announcement that you're receptive to being a write-in candidate. So, and just to be clear about that, as being receptive as a write-in candidate, that means that you're not going to be endorsing any other party's candidate for president, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
I'm not going to endorse anybody. And in fact, all I'm saying is there's no candidate for me right now, so I'll be voting for myself. I want to be clear on this. I am not an official candidate because I don't want to lose my job and health insurance.
Right.
But if people write me in, I can't do nothing about that. I'm not on the ballot. So
That's true.
I think that gets me off the hook. As far as being able to keep my job.
I read a quote online of you saying that the Russians' hack into the 2016 election was analogous to Pearl Harbor. Do you believe?
Did I say that?
I saw on the Council on Foreign Relations website. I don't know if you actually did say that or write that, but that's what is up there attributed to.
If that's yeah. Okay, so.
Would that be an accurate reflection of how you assess the situation?
I mean, 17 intelligence agencies in the United States all agreed that Russia did seek to interfere with our elections. And that would be analogous to an attack on Pearl Harbor. If you attack our elections, you're attacking it's like a major organ in the body politic. I mean, what is our freedom? What is our liberty? What is our democracy without our elections? So yeah, that's a big deal.
Okay. I just want to correct you. I know initially the 17 agencies thing that was put out. That was actually retracted by New York Times. I think that there has been a lot of kind of conflicting reports and things have been characterized differently. When we look at the Russiagate saga, what do you think are the most damning pieces of evidence that there was collusion or that Russia did hack and influence the vote?
Well, cybersecurity experts and Facebook itself have concluded that many of the ads that were posted, many of the stories that were told were false, were outright false, and were there for the express purpose of helping to elect one candidate and to defeat another. I mean, what more do you need? That's kind of it right there.
Well, they tried that with my name. Can you believe that? Yeah. Yeah, that scumbag piece of shit. Yeah, he also bought Jim Duggan. He also got Jim Duggan's name. I hate to be the honky-tonk man when Jim Duggan gets hold of his ass. That will not be pretty. And I just ran into him the other day, and all I did was look at him, and the guy has no balls. He simply just ducked his head and held his head down, man, and just sucked up to some girl that was working for him there at the con. I'd seen him in the past dress his son up with a mask and call him the Patriot and cheat the fans out of money, selling them bogus Patriot stuff. And, come on, man. What are you, And, I guess that's what drunks do. I used to be a drunk. I did some dumb shit, but I never did shit that dumb.
I also had Jill Stein on the show and some Green Party candidates that are running in the 2020 election. And she and someone else had mentioned that they might like you to run with the Green Party. Is that something that you would ever consider, or are you dead set on supporting the Democratic nominee, whoever that might be?
Yeah, I'm not going to run as a third-party candidate or as an independent. The reality is that our country has a two-party system right now, and frankly, it's not viable to think that a third-party candidate in this day and age will be able to be successful in that election. My energy is, I've always been a Democrat, and my energy is focused on being the Democratic nominee, being in that position where I can be the president and leading our party towards bringing about the kinds of reforms that it needs, rooting out the corruption within our own party, and making it so that the Democratic Party truly represents the interests of the people and our planet.
I'd just be interested overall, what are your thoughts on the way that Jill Stein has been treated by the corporate media following the 2016 election?
Well, I was part of an advisory group to Jill, and I advised her not to go to that RT thing.
Why?
And in fact, I thought it was a setup. RT is, Russian propaganda. There's a lot of good programming on it, and they don't really interfere with that. Chris Hedges, Larry King, I don't know if Larry's still on there, Tom Hartman. But there's also, when the news comes from central headquarters, they get all kinds of crazy conspiracy people on there. Old LaRouche people, the Lyndon LaRouche,
right.
Conspiracy people and others. So I didn't trust them. And actually another person said, they could take a picture that would just overshadow everything you say. And she thought she'd give a message. She was encouraged by a lot of people in the peace movement. So she went. And that picture Putin, you said she sat down with Putin. No, Putin sat down at the table with her for just a few minutes.
Right.
Picture snapped. Flynn is there. She don't know Flynn. Nobody knows Flynn. And Putin leaves. And then Sputnik International, another state media, puts it out on the media. And then, what's their purpose? Divide us in this country. The liberals from the more radical elements. And then MSNBC, CNN, Fox put that picture out there, and a lot of print media, again and again and again. They're doing it for Russian propaganda. That was what the Russians wanted. I mean, it's so ironic. The media is, they're following this Russiagate thing, which I think is serious. I think Trump ought to be impeached. I think it's obvious he saw collusion. He did collude, him and his son and his son-in-law, and it's all over that first volume of the Mueller report. It's all over there. I mean, when people say, "Oh, it showed no collusion," no, it didn't. It says, Mueller says right away, "I didn't talk about collusion. I talked about narrow legal definition of conspiracy. Plus, I can't indict the president according to this OLC letter in the Justice Department." He just laid out the evidence for prosecutors, which has to be Congress.
And so I agree totally to pull the American troops out. It is not a loss of support of Kurds. The Kurds participated in the war in that area because of their own self-interest. We should have never been there to begin with. This is a regional problem that should be addressed by the regional players. We are not a regional player in that part of the world.
So I wanted to get your thoughts on this quote. This quote says, "There is no higher disgrace to America than the abandonment of the Kurds, fighters for freedom and independence, to the hard right forces of Erdogan. Every American should hang their head in shame." What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I don't think we should hang our head in shame. I think we should hold our head high and bring home the American troops who have no business being there, period.
Do you know who said that quote?
Pardon me?
Do you know who said that quote?
No, who?
That was your Twitter account.
My Twitter account. Okay, well, this goes to prove that sometimes the kids that ran my campaign don't always have the same views that I have or haven't listened to me. And so it's unfortunate that it's a quote that appears to come from me, but it doesn't come from me in this regard. And the fact that these teenage kids have views that are not vetted by years of experience is self-evident. And so I don't have to be angry at them. They have an expression of their views. Whenever we get together, we go over with this, and I think they bring about a certain enlightenment on my part. What they have done that I really buy into is they support the concept of direct democracy. They support creating and operating a legislature of the people. That's what floats my boat, and I don't particularly want to take them to task for views that they have that are at variance from my views. It's unfortunate that the only way they have to do that is to use my Twitter account, which may add to the confusion, but so be it. There's confusion right now in the entire political leadership of the American government.
I don't know if Kyle is just like a shy guy or doesn't like confrontation, but it seems remarkably cowardly. And so in this last video, he essentially said the reason that he didn't want to have you on is because he didn't want to ask you a question. So I'm just going to ask you the question that he didn't want to ask you. When you were revealing the blackmail attempt by Anna Kasparian, you used the term that she was dressing inappropriately. In retrospect, do you think that that was the wrong terminology to use in that response?
The only reason I had to talk about that was because she was fucking blackmailing me. And you're gonna nitpick the words that someone who's being in the most sleaziest thing you could do, the thing you could never defend yourself from. You're gonna do. She's gonna weaponize an incident from 7 years ago. That's an obvious, transparent bullshit. She's gonna misuse the hashtags #MeToo thing that makes other women not be fucking believed. And the problem Kyle had was that I said she dressed inappropriately when I had to explain what happened. I'm sorry. I don't fucking apologize for that. And what he did was bullshit. And it should what a bullshit thing. I'm not responding to a fucking sleazy blackmail thing properly. I'm not using the proper words. Is that really the accusation? Yes. That was the accusation. And of course, I showed Kyle Kalinske to be a complete full fucking outrage pearl clutcher because he had tweeted at Anna Kasparian before, hey, why don't you masturbate on camera? I bet you'd get more live stream viewers. And Anna Kasparian went back, I bet we'd get 6,000. So they're all fucking pigs. They're all fucking pigs, and they're trying to slime me, and it's not working.
Yeah, as you mentioned,
I didn't fucking talk about it the right way. I'm getting fucking smeared and in the sleaziest way possible. And I said inappropriate. Oh my God, Jimmy Dore said inappropriate. Did he say inappropriate? You don't want to punch Cenk Uygur in the face for smearing Julian Assange while he's being tortured. You don't want to punch Anna Kasparian in the face for tweeting out a fucking doctored video to smear an award-winning anti-war journalist. You don't want to fucking punch Cenk Uygur in the face for calling Jimmy Dore a neo-Nazi. You don't want to punch Anna Kasparian in the face for doing an obvious, blatant misuse of the hashtag #MeToo. You don't want to no, but Jimmy Dore said inappropriate when he had to defend himself against a fucking sleazy smear. That reveals Kyle for who he is.
When you talk about folks having the freedom to, separate if they don't want to abide by these vaccine mandates, what would that look like on a practical level? Does that mean that folks need to just stay home and have like groceries delivered to them? Does it mean like separated communities of folks who are unvaccinated, or just, how do you think this would practically play out?
Same way as with people who say that I don't want to accept traffic rules. I suppose there were people who said, it's an attack on my liberty to make me stop at a red light. It's government overreach. We don't want the state to have that power over my private life. Well, such people they should have the decency to remove themselves from the community. If they refuse to do that, then measures have to be taken to safeguard the community from them. Then comes the practical question that you ask, how can we get food to them? Well, that's actually their problem. Of course, if they really become destitute, then yes, you'd have to move in with some measure to secure their survival, just as you do with people in jail, for example. But that's really not the issue. The issue is if people say, I want to be a killer, I don't want to stop at a red light, fine, go somewhere where you're not endangering the community. And since you treasure your liberty so much, find a way to secure it for yourself.